fabulous people. So, I am here with the first of possibly many busy brain babbles, because one of the things I realized I really missed from way back was when I started my psychology practice. I had my Facebook page for that, and more often than not throughout the week, it was really interesting because it was like people you would come across, whether that was the clients who sat in front of me, whether that was, friends or family. It was almost like there were these themes that would come up for people, and I'd often jump on and just have a little bit of a discussion around that, and I missed that. And one of the reasons I changed my name, and yes, even though it's longer, which is annoying, but I didn't want to change other parts of it. The science to soul aspect to me is very important, because I am very much about the science behind things, particularly how the brain works. I'm very much into quantum science, and the connections and all of that exists between that and spirituality, and the research being done on that around different areas of spirituality and spiritual experience. And I didn't want to change that. And I am more about tarot. And even though, yes, I've come on multiple times, and what I've spoken about doesn't relate to tarot, I wanted to put that in there as, tarot and transformation, because even if I gave up my psychology registration tomorrow, I will always be someone who just feels it is my life purpose to help people in some way, shape, or form to transform who they are, the things they're doing, the things they struggle with. And that is about transformation, So that's a little bit of a background of the name change, but also to explain a little bit of, what you can expect coming up as being more than just tarot. And the last 72 hours in particular have brought multiple experiences and emotions to me around this idea of acting, as in doing things, and speaking up when perhaps it's not so appropriate. And yes, we all like to throw around terms like, but I have free will, and I have, I'm allowed to have my opinion and all of that kind of stuff. And yes, we are allowed to have an opinion, and we do have free will to a point. But I don't think that allows permission from the perspective of respect, care for others, kindness towards others. I don't think that means it's okay to just do and say whatever you want, whenever and wherever you want. And I've spent about, I don't know, a good 32 hours almost in silence. And what I mean by in silence was just being in the house, even though, hubby was home, my boy is here, of pretty much just shutting the hell up, because you know those moments where your brain is just, it's got so much going on and not necessarily positive, great things. And you're kind of scared that if you open your mouth, the wrong thing is going to come out. So to prevent that happening, I've kind of just tried to be silent and had normal conversations, but pretty well kept to myself. Kind of like that, putting myself in a timeout bubble, I guess. And one of the things, I guess, that happened around this was there was something I really wanted to do for someone, and it was a nice thing. And it's something I know that they would look back on and see as being quite memorable, quite special, quite sentimental. And it would have taken less than 5 minutes. Now, because I didn't just want to go ahead and overstep the mark in case that was responded to badly, I was chatting to this person and I said, is it okay if I meet you at, X place? It'll take up maximum 5 minutes. And the short of the answer back was no. So that was something I really had to sit with, because there's part of me that went, maybe I shouldn't have asked, maybe I should have just done it anyway. And it was really hard to hear no, because to me it was something very meaningful. So it took a lot of processing to be okay with hearing no. And I couldn't tell this person what I wanted to do, because then there would be no point in doing it, because it would have just ruined it. And I'm not going to say any more than this, because it's a personal thing. So I had to sit with that a lot. And so different messages got exchanged around different things and different aspects, and it took a lot of self-control for me to say things politely, for me not just to go, God, can't you just say yes to this once, for me not to, I guess, just say anything, even with the generic texts that followed. And that was really hard. It was really difficult. And I was talking to someone else about the situation whose opinion was, do what you want, have no regrets. And it was like, well, no, because yes, I know this would have been a really small thing as far as timing goes, but a really sentimental thing. But I needed to respect the fact that the answer was no. And that was really hard. And this wasn't even a bad thing. This was a good thing. And then other things happen in separate situations. I was scrolling through Facebook and something came up. And one thing that I cannot stand is the passive-aggressive bullshit that goes on Facebook. It does my head in. And this particular one, was not so much directed at me, but it took me back to a very difficult time. And it was one of those moments where it goes through your head, I just want to put something on Facebook, I just want to say something on here, blah, blah. But again, it was having to step back, and it was having to go, what's that gonna do? What's that gonna change? Who is that gonna help? Because my being offended by this thing, if I spoke up about it, I know the reaction I was gonna get. Being passive aggressive back by putting something on Facebook would not have made me any better than the initial passive aggressive thing that I did see. But it was really hard. It was really difficult to shut the hell up and not say anything. And so all these things just really started to play out in my head for me. And then my husband had this experience at work where a customer came in and saw that he had one of my selenite wands on his desk. And I'd given this to him a while ago when they were just getting lots and lots of negative people coming in, and I have video evidence of him using the selenite wand, which I was quite shocked at. And his boss and the other guy he works with, they were just all into it. So he has this customer come in, asks about it, and then proceeds to talk about what this person does for a living, and telling my husband, well, you need this crystal and that crystal for this and that. Okay, cool, fine. But then gets up, walks around the workplace, goes into the boss's office, into the boss's private office, does her thing, and talks about the energy and the crystal the boss needs, then goes over to the other guy's personal work desk, does the same thing there. And it just, like, my husband called me straight away to tell me about this, and it blew my mind, because I understand that this person may have been doing this from a genuine place. Like, I specifically asked my hubby, how did it come across? Was it coming across like I'm genuinely helping you, or was it coming across like I'm trying to sell you to the business I run? And he was like, no, it was nothing about selling to the business. And it got me, like, I went down rabbit holes with all of these things, as I do. My brain is always thinking, and yes, it's always thinking about, not always, it can get stuck in that thinking we do, that negative kind of thinking, when we're ruminating on something that's shitting us off. But it's also always thinking about different things that come up, different things that happen, whether it's in my home life, whether it's with clients, whether it's with friends, whether it's at, you know, my son's basketball games. It doesn't matter where I am. It's always processing and looking at different ways that people respond and all of that. And so this whole thing just took me down a rabbit hole, combined with what I'd gone through by thinking I wanted to do this nice thing, combined with this passive aggressive Facebook post, and thinking, okay, I understand that this person is obviously someone who wants to help, who genuinely thinks that they're doing a service. But the other part of me also goes, it's not okay to, it's one thing to sit there and offer my husband one piece of advice about a crystal. It is not okay to get up to go into private offices when you have not been invited or asked, when your opinion has not been asked for, when your expertise have not been asked for, and start doing your thing. It's kind of like me seeing someone in a shopping center who looks sad and going up and saying, "Oh, you look really sad, and I'm a psychologist, so you tell me what's going on and I'll tell you what you need to do." The person hasn't asked for it. It's like what we talk about in tarot, not doing readings for people who have not given permission and who have not asked for it. And so all these things combined just got my brain ticking over. And it made me look at so many different scenarios that have gone on around me where it can be really tricky to know the difference between when to speak up and when to shut the hell up. And yes, okay, we're all allowed to have our opinion, and we are. But I don't think that means we have a right to do it disrespectfully. I don't think if it means it's going to hurt people, that just still gives us the freedom to say whatever the fuck we want, you know, no matter who gives a shit, you know. I even heard a psychologist say once, "I'll say what I want, and if you don't like it, then that's your problem to go and figure out why." And I nearly fell off my freaking chair because of all the psychologist friends and other mental health worker friends I have ever been around, of all the programs I have run with mental health workers in it, of all the programs I have been in with other mental health workers, of any mental health worker I've come across, at no point would any of these respectable people sit there and say to anybody in front of them, and definitely not a client or, you know, a kind of a program or lecture type scenario where they're giving advice, would ever say, "If you don't like something I say, then that's your problem." No. There are times when, yes, we aren't going to like what people say, even when it's said respectfully. There are times when people are going to have opinions that are different to ours. There are times where people are going to trigger us. And in those times, if what that person is doing is done with respect and with kindness, and they're not intentionally just giving out opinions and or advice or suggestions where there's no level of kindness or concern for who might be hearing this, that's just not okay. Like, it is not okay. And I hope that it is coming across that I understand there's a difference between giving an opinion when it's your thoughts on something, offering suggestions of advice because maybe it's worked for you, or maybe you're, you know, in a role where that is your profession and you know about that. But it's still not okay to rant and rave and speak unkindly and not give two shits about the consequences of the other people around you. And it really just got me thinking And it got me thinking about my own situations where I've done this. Like I said, it got me, particularly because I wanted to do this action that I knew was something really lovely. But out of respect for the other person having said no, then I needed to back the fuck away. And it was not okay for me to think that I could go ranting and raving and whinging at this person or telling them how much they hurt me because they said no. I could have done that. The thoughts all went through my head, believe me. But out of kindness and respect, number one, I chose just to not do that action. And two, to shut the fuck up about it, because nothing good was going to come out of it. And it would make that other person potentially feel really guilty if they knew what the action was. And having said no to it, it would probably make the other person feel angry if I had have came back trying to justify that I don't think it's okay that you said no and all this kind of thing. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of times I've done that. When it comes to family in particular, I'm a very overreactive, like mother, wife, daughter, sister, whatever. And I will often speak from heightened emotion rather than shutting the fuck up and thinking it through first. I know that, okay? And I know that's something I need to work on. So that's kind of why I just wanted to share these experiences that came up for me in a period of really less than 72 hours, that these three different scenarios played out. Like the one about the action I wanted to take as a nice gesture, and then the having to shut the fuck up and not say anything when the response was no. The one in regards to the passive-aggressive Facebook post that I saw, and the one in regards to this person walking into my husband's work and just freely allowing herself to walk into private offices and up to private workspaces and give advice. And it did get me thinking, because it got me thinking about how many times we speak and we say shit because we think we have a right to be heard. And we do. But how often we actually don't stop. And with true and pure kindness and true care and compassion and empathy for other people, how often we forget those things before we open our mouths. So it's been an interesting 72 hours of thinking, processing, learning for me. And that's why I just wanted to jump on and put that out, because even if there's one person who listens to this and goes, yeah, I need to think about that a little more myself, then awesome. And like I said, it's because I'm always thinking things like this through. How people are behaving, acting, ethics, moral behaviors. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean I'm sitting there judging other people. I'm looking at myself the whole time with these things too. And the majority of it comes back to me thinking about what I've done and how it relates to me. So it's not about sitting judging. It's just about the little things that start to come up the more I go down these rabbit holes, and having missed being able to have these conversations with people, because I do think if even one person is going through something, but if there's a few people going through something, then that could really help other people out there who might stumble across it and hear it and listen to it. So there will be more of these, and yeah, they'll just be random. They'll be as things come into my head. I used to do these kinds of things at all different places. I'd be waiting in the car at basketball games or basketball trainings, or, you know, I'd be down at the basketball courts with my son, and I'd sit down and record because something popped into my head at the time, or things had been happening and I'd been processing on them. So yeah, I hope that all kind of made sense. Obviously there are exceptions to rules when it comes to speaking up and having opinions. I'm not talking about the big issue stuff. I'm talking about our day-to-day life with the people around us, and just taking a second to think about whether what we're doing and what we're saying is actually taking into account other people who are around us at the time. So let me know if you've got any comments on this, and until next time, I send you all love. Bye.